Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
For the past 2 years, I've been biking to work every day on this decent mountain bike I saved up for. It wasn't anything fancy, but it got me there and back without breaking a sweat. That changed 3 months ago when someone cut through the bike lock and stole it right from the rack outside my building. I was pretty bummed about it since I didn't have the money to replace it right away, and taking the bus would eat up almost an hour each way with all the stops. My cousin heard about what happened when I mentioned it at Sunday dinner at my aunt and uncle's place. He said he had an old bike in their backyard that I could have if I wanted it. The next weekend, I went over to check it out. What I found was this rusty old beach cruiser that had been sitting outside under a tarp for who knows how long. The chain was completely seized up, both tires were flat and cracked, the seat was torn, and there was rust on pretty much every metal part. It looked like it hadn't been touched in years. My cousin told me I could take it if I wanted since he was never going to use it anyway. I asked if he was sure since it needed a lot of work. He said, yeah, whatever. It was just taking up space. His parents were right there when he said it, and they nodded along. His mom even helped me load it into my car. I spent the next 3 weeks working on that bike every evening after work. I replaced both tires, got a new chain, fixed the brakes, patched up the seat, sanded off the rust, and gave the whole thing a fresh coat of paint. I probably put about $60 worth of parts into it, not counting all the hours of labor. But when I was done, it actually looked pretty nice. It wasn't a mountain bike, but it worked great for getting to work. Then last month, out of nowhere, my cousin texted me saying he needed that bike back or I could pay him $60 for it. This was the same bike he'd left to rot in his parents' backyard for years. The same bike he'd given me when it was barely functional junk. I texted back asking what he was talking about since he'd said I could have it. He replied that he didn't know I was going to make it look all nice and now he could sell it. I reminded him that he'd given it to me and his parents were there when he said it. He said he'd changed his mind and I either had to pay him or give it back. I tried to reason with him, but he wouldn't listen. He started texting me every day demanding money or the bike back. When I stopped responding, he got his parents involved, telling them I was being unreasonable and stealing from him. That backfired on him pretty quickly. His parents remembered exactly what happened and told him he was being ridiculous. My aunt actually called me to apologize for his behavior and said the bike was mine. End of story. But my cousin wouldn't let it go. He kept harassing me about it, so I ended up making a post on the Am I the A-hole subreddit just to get some outside perspective. Pretty much everyone agreed that I wasn't in the wrong, which made me feel better about the whole situation. Apparently one of his friends saw my post somewhere online, or maybe heard it read on a podcast or something. Word got back to my cousin, and then he told the whole family about it. I was worried they'd be mad at me for airing family business online, but they weren't. If anything, they felt bad that I'd felt like I needed to ask strangers for advice about something so obvious. My cousin, on the other hand, was furious. He confronted me last Tuesday when I was riding home from work. He stepped right into the bike path, forcing me to brake hard to avoid hitting him. He yelled at me to stop right there. I asked him what his problem was. He said I knew exactly what his problem was, and that I'd put our business all over the internet and made him look like an idiot. I told him I didn't use anyone's real names and that he made himself look like an idiot. Then he said the bike was going to cost me $80 now. He called it an a-hole tax for humiliating him. I just stared at him. $80 for a bike he'd literally thrown away. I told him he was out of his mind and I wasn't paying him anything. He said I was going to pay him $80 or he was taking the bike back right then. I told him he was acting like some kind of con artist and that the bike was worthless when he gave it to me. I said I was the one who put in all the work to make it rideable again. I started listing everything I'd done to fix it up and how much it would have cost to have a bike shop do the same work. He just stood there getting angrier. He said he didn't care what I did to it because it was still his bike and I owed him $80. I told him I was done with this crazy conversation and tried to ride around him, but he grabbed the handlebars, and yanked the whole bike sideways. Both me and the bike went down hard on the pavement. I yelled at him asking what the hell he was doing. I was getting back up when he punched me right in the face. It felt like getting hit with a brick. My nose started bleeding immediately, and for a second I thought he might have broken it. Before I could even react, he grabbed the bike and rode off with it, leaving me sitting on the sidewalk with blood running down my face. I'm 2 years older than my cousin and a few inches taller, but he's built like his dad, stocky and strong. He had no problem knocking me down and just taking what he wanted. A woman who saw the whole thing helped me up and asked if I was okay. I called the police right away. Family or no family, I wasn't going to let him get away with beating me up and stealing from me. It happened right in front of a shop with security cameras. The police got the footage without any trouble. They sent me to the hospital to get checked out while they went to arrest my cousin at his apartment. They found the bike there too. He'd already posted it for sale online but took the listing down when he realized he was in trouble. Thanks to advice from my Reddit post, I'd taken pictures of the bike's serial numbers and written them down at home. So when the police asked me to prove it was mine, I had documentation. I also had all the text messages from when my cousin first gave me the bike, plus all his harassment afterward. My cousin tried to tell the police the bike was still his, but between the texts, the serial numbers, and his parents backing up my story, he didn't have a leg to stand on. They returned my bike to me at the station. My boss gave me a couple days off to recover. Thankfully, my nose wasn't broken, just really sore and swollen. My cousin didn't get off easy though. When they arrested him, they found out he'd been drinking. So now he's facing charges for theft, assault, and underage drinking since he's only 19. He called his parents from jail asking them to bail him out, but they refused after they found out what he'd done to me. They came to see me a couple days later and apologized over and over. They said they had no idea he was capable of something like that. They also mentioned that he'd been asking them for money a lot lately, which now made more sense. They think he was spending it all on alcohol, and who knows what else. The police asked if I wanted to press additional charges, but they already had the video of the assault and theft. My cousin was getting charged for underage drinking either way, so nobody was asking me to speak on his behalf. I didn't want to anyway. Since I waited a few extra days to write this update, I found out even more about how this whole thing has blown up in my cousin's face. He's out of jail now, but his parents learned that he was behind on rent and facing eviction since he was on a month-to-month lease. He also got fired from his job for being a no-show while he was stuck in jail for 3 days. According to my friend who works at the same place, my cousin had already been in trouble there for being late all the time and calling out constantly. Getting arrested was just the final straw for his boss. So now he's looking at criminal charges, has no job, and is getting kicked out of his apartment, all because he had to be greedy and wouldn't let go of a bike he'd thrown away. From what my parents and his parents tell me, he's trying to blame me for everything that happened to him. But his parents shut that down real quick and told him this was all what happens when you beat someone up and steal from them. They also told him he needs to leave me alone from now on, which he promised to do. I heard his parents aren't letting him move back into his old bedroom either. Instead, they're putting him up in the loft above their garage. From what I remember, that space has plywood walls, no air conditioning, and barely enough room to stand up straight. Should be fun for him during the summer heat. I'm back to riding the bike to and from work every day, and none of my cousin's friends have bothered me about it. I've played tennis since I was 12. My brother started when he was 10. We both made our high school teams and tennis became our life. Every weekend, our dad would take us to the local courts to practice. He used to play in college, so he knew what he was doing when it came to training us. The courts we went to were pretty nice. They had 6 courts total and a small pro shop where you could buy drinks and equipment. That Saturday started like any other. My brother and I were warming up while Dad set up some cones for drills. I was 17 at the time and my brother was 15. We were both getting ready for our upcoming matches that week. The weather was perfect for tennis, not too hot, with a slight breeze. About 20 minutes into our practice, we noticed something buzzing overhead. It was a drone flying pretty high up at first. We thought it was kinda cool actually. Neither of us had seen one up close before. My brother pointed at the thing flying around and said he wondered who was controlling it. I told him it was probably someone in the grassy area next to the courts, and long he stayed up high, I didn't really care. We kept practicing, doing some baseline drills that Dad had taught us. The drone was still there, but it wasn't bothering us yet. Dad was inside the pro shop getting some water bottles, so it was just the two of us on the court. When time went on, the drone started getting lower and lower. It began flying directly over our court, which made it harder to concentrate. The buzzing sound was pretty loud, and it kept moving back and forth above us. My brother complained that it was getting annoying and asked if they couldn't fly that thing somewhere else. I told him to just ignore it, and maybe they would move it soon. Dad came back out and suggested we play a match against each other, best 3 out of 5 sets. We started playing, trying to focus despite the drone overhead, but the thing kept getting lower and lower. It was flying right over the net now, moving from side to side. We played. I was serving when it happened. My brother was returning my serve, hitting a pretty good backhand down the line. The ball went straight up and smacked right into the drone. The impact sent the drone spinning, and it crashed down onto our side of the court. Both of us just froze. We had no idea what to do. The drone was lying there, one of its propellers completely broken off. My brother panicked and said we were in so much trouble. I told him it wasn't our fault because that thing was way too low. We started waving at Dad, who was still by the pro shop. He saw us and started walking over. That's when we heard someone shouting from across the courts. Some guy yelled asking if we were kidding him. This guy came stomping around the courts looking for his drone. He was probably in his 40s, wearing cargo shorts and a baseball cap. What made it worse was that he was walking right onto other people's courts while they were playing. You never do that. It's basic tennis etiquette. You wait for people to finish their point before you even step near their court. He found his broken drone on our court and just walked right onto it without any warning. We had to stop playing so he wouldn't get hit by our ball. The entitled drone operator demanded to know what we idiots had done. I told him it wasn't our fault and that he was the one flying it over a tennis court. He yelled back that we should have played around it and asked if we knew how much the thing cost him. My brother told him we didn't care, that we tried to avoid it but couldn't, and that he was careless enough to put it in harm's way like he was asking for someone to hit it. The three of us kept arguing back and forth. Dad noticed the commotion and started walking over with his racket in his hand. That's when this guy really lost it and started calling me horrible names about women, being stupid, and other disgusting things I don't want to repeat here. My dad heard that and asked what the guy had just said to his daughter. The drone operator asked if I was his daughter and said Dad let me dress inappropriately. He called Dad a bad father. I was wearing compression shorts and a baggy t-shirt, normal tennis clothes, nothing inappropriate at all. Dad asked why the guy was looking at me like that anyway, explaining that I was an athlete who had to wear clothes that let me move around. He warned the guy that if he called me names one more time, he would regret it. The entitled drone operator mocked my dad, saying he was so scared of the big scary dad protecting his daughter. That was the last straw. My dad swung his racket and hit the guy right in the shin. If you've ever been hit by a tennis racket, you know how much that hurts. The guy dropped to the ground immediately. Dad bent down and told him to get his stuff and leave. The guy grabbed his broken drone and limped toward the pro shop. About 10 minutes later, 2 police cars pulled up. This guy had actually called the cops on us, claiming we destroyed his drone on purpose and that my dad assaulted him. The first police officer greeted us and asked how we were doing. I told him we were fine, just trying to practice, and asked if everything was okay. He explained that a gentleman in the shop had called them, saying we destroyed his drone and had my father attack him. Dad explained everything that happened. He admitted to hitting the guy with his racket, but he also mentioned something important: the cameras. The tennis courts had security cameras, and the drone itself probably recorded everything. The second officer thanked Dad for being honest and asked us all to follow them to the shop so they could review the footage. We packed up our stuff and went inside. The entitled guy was sitting on the couch downloading footage from his drone onto his laptop to show the police. While they were setting that up, one of the officers ran the guy's information and discovered he didn't have the proper license to fly a drone. He got fined right there. The officers took the laptop into the office where the security monitors were. They watched footage from both the court cameras and the drone itself. After about 15 minutes, they came back out. One of the officers had a strange look on his face. The second officer asked me how old I was. I told him I had just turned 17 and asked why he wanted to know. The two officers looked at each other, then one of them walked over and put handcuffs on the drone guy, telling him he was under arrest. I thought it was just because of the drone license thing, but then the other officer turned to me with a serious expression. He said he wasn't sure how to tell me this, but the man had been using his drone to record inappropriate footage of me. He asked if I wanted to press charges. My face turned bright red. I felt sick to my stomach. I couldn't even speak. I just stood there with my mouth open. My dad was furious. He looked like he wanted to hit the guy again, but harder this time. He demanded that we press charges against the predator. The second officer said he heard him loud and clear. They escorted the creep to the police car while the other officer took statements from all three of us. I was trying so hard not to cry, but I was angry and disgusted and embarrassed all at the same time. Dad and my brother both gave me a big hug, and I finally let the tears out. We drove home and Dad called Mom to tell her what happened. She came over with my sisters and even brought our dogs. They all just sat with me and made sure I was okay. The guy went to jail. I'm not sure for how long, but knowing what he was really doing with that drone still makes me feel sick sometimes. The summer before this incident, I had worked at a computer camp for deaf and blind children. I took a sign language course beforehand to learn the basics beyond just the alphabet, and by the end of that summer, I had become pretty fluent. I could hold full conversations and really communicate well with my students. I think I learned way more from those kids than they ever learned from me. They taught me patience, empathy, and how to see the world differently. But this story isn't about that wholesome experience. This is about how one entitled woman's behavior landed her in the back of a police car. I was at Kmart looking for something specific. I can't even remember what it was now, but that's not important. I was putting some items back on the shelf that I had moved around while browsing when I heard this throat-clearing sound behind me. I just ignored it. I wasn't in the mood to deal with people that day, and someone trying to get my attention was the last thing I wanted to handle. The sound came again, louder and more demanding this time. I kept ignoring her and continued what I was doing. I could hear her foot tapping impatiently behind me, so I finished up and started to walk away. That's when she grabbed my arm and spun me around to face her. She yelled at me, saying she was trying to talk to me and asking if I knew how rude I was being. I let out a startled yelp and started signing that I was sorry and didn't see her. She demanded to know what I was doing and kept yelling about how she was trying to talk to me. She called me rude again. I signed back that I was sorry, that I was deaf and couldn't hear her, but that she had no right to grab me and should leave me alone. She got even angrier and started screaming about me, waving my hands around. She accused me of doing gang signs to intimidate her and demanded that I stop it right now. By now, her yelling had drawn the attention of several other customers and the store manager. A nice person nearby tried to help by telling her that they didn't think I could hear her and that I was trying to use sign language. The store manager came over and asked her to please come with him and leave me alone. She refused and kept screaming that I was flashing gang signs to intimidate her. She demanded that someone call the police and said that I was in a gang. She wanted cops there right away. She grabbed onto my arm again, this time with an iron grip. This woman had the strongest grip I've ever experienced. Her fingernails dug into my arm so hard they left gouges and bruises that lasted for days. She would not let go no matter how much I tried to pull away. The other customers and the manager kept trying to get her to release me, but she just kept screaming and demanding the police. This went on for what felt like forever, but was probably only a few minutes. When you have a crazy person literally clawing your arm while screaming about gang signs, time moves really slowly. Finally, 3 police officers showed up. Thank God. The first officer told her to let me go, stop screaming, and settle down. She started yelling that she wanted me arrested. She claimed I was flashing gang signs and intimidating her, and that I was threatening her. I moved away as quickly as possible with the store manager standing between me and this woman. It took the officers a couple of minutes to get her calmed down enough to talk coherently. They had to put her in handcuffs first. When things settled down, one of the officers came over to ask what happened. Now, I should have come clean right then and there, but I was committed to this whole deaf act. If there's one thing about me, it's that I'm not a quitter. I started signing to the officer, who quickly realized I was supposedly deaf. He pulled out his notepad and pen and gestured for me to write down what happened. I wrote that I was shopping when this lady grabbed my arm and spun me around. I explained that I tried to tell her I couldn't hear, but she grabbed me harder and started screaming. I wrote that everyone tried to help, but she wouldn't let go, and that I just wanted to go home. I called her crazy and mentioned that she really hurt my arm. I showed him the gouges and bruising that was already starting to show up on my arm. The officer's expression changed completely when he saw the damage. He walked me over to Karen, who was still in handcuffs. He angrily asked her if she could see how bad she had hurt me. He told her that I had no idea why she was grabbing me because I couldn't hear and was deaf. He explained that I was signing to her and asked what kind of person she was. Her face showed pure shock and horror as reality hit her. Then she started babbling excuses. She said she didn't know and asked how she was supposed to know sign language. She claimed that all I had to do was talk to her and that it wasn't her fault. She said that stores should have people to help disabled customers. They escorted her out to the patrol car and shut the door. The officers took my statement, along with statements from several witnesses and the store manager. They also requested video footage from the store's security cameras. I was told I could go home. I got in my car and started laughing as I drove away, knowing full well that I was a complete jerk, but also knowing that I had probably just taught this woman the lesson of a lifetime. The aftermath was even better than I expected. She was charged with assault of a disabled person and creating a public disturbance. Between the witness statements, the video footage, and the photos of my bruised and scratched arm, her lawyers ended up pleading down to just the assault charge. She got no jail time but had to pay a $1,600 fine and complete 450 hours of community service. Since I lived in a state where victims of crimes against disabled persons must be notified of plea deals, I received a notice from the court. They asked if I found the deal acceptable or if I felt it wasn't fair enough. This helps judges make more informed decisions about sentencing. I didn't want to risk having to sit in a courtroom and potentially blow my cover, so I signed the paperwork saying the deal was acceptable and sent it back to the court. I know I was a jerk for pretending to be deaf, but I think that maybe those 450 hours of community service taught her something about treating people with disabilities with respect. The bruises on my arm faded after a couple of weeks, but I hope the lesson she learned that day lasted a lot longer. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.